Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, Atlanta. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela, where we encourage, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire, and that's what we are going to do today. We are going to get you fired up about sons and dads. And who doesn't want to have the best possible family dynamic that they can? My guest today is Dr. Humphrey Muciiri, and he is out of the Upland, Indiana area. He is author of the book Sons and Dads, and I am so excited to share that with you today. So let me tell you a little bit more about Dr. Muciiri. He was born in Nyeri County in Central Providence of Kenya, and before coming to the United States in September of 2001, he worked for 22 years in three multinational companies, namely Unilever, Pfizer Laboratories, and the Colgate-Palmolive Limited Company as well. For 10 years, he worked in the restaurant business in Nairobi, Kenya. And who doesn't love to eat? I love restaurateurs. They have such a wonderful personality. Well, after 32 years, he went back to school and earned a Master's of Art degree in Communications from Daystar University in Nairobi, Kenya. He has also earned his PhD in Organizational and Management from Capella University in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Further, he has taught management courses for 10 years at Taylor University, Huntington University, and Indiana Wesleyan University here in the States. His current interests are reading and writing, and of course his book, Sons and Dads. It is his first, but he likes working out in the gym, walking, reading his Bible, and related literature for spiritual growth, international affairs, business and economic affairs, singing, and international travel, which is something on my goals list as well. He retired in 2015 and works with his wife in the Amsha Foundation to raise funds to help Christian students who perform well academically but are financially poor to pay for university tuition. The benefits that he has and the benefits that he wants to share with the students to be able to finish their high school education and to later help their parents as well as his parents and siblings to be able to get out of poverty. Education is a major, major thing that is affecting Africa as a whole, and Dr. Muciiri and his wife both want to tackle those issues that are plaguing Africa right now. Now, I know that listeners, we know, just to make it straight, sometimes we refer to Africa as though it is a country. We understand that Africa is the entire continent because we are enlightened folks that listen to this station, and we are trying to help our African brothers and sisters as a whole. So we're talking trials and tribulations faced by Christian sons and dads today. So let's bring on Dr. Muciiri. Hello, hello, hello. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, hello.
Thank you so much for being on the show. So, Dr. Muciiri, as having sons myself, I love talking to people who want to enlighten us about how can we raise the best possible sons that we can and help them to grow into the best possible men. So what made you decide to write the book, Sons and Dads?
Well, I was brought up in a non-Christian family and became a Christian after high school. Mm-hmm. And during this time up to now, I have been observing the relationship between Christian sons, rather Christian dads and their sons, mm-hmm. and at the same time, those who are not Christians. But what I have observed is that sons from Christian dads tend to rebel against their dads. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, and generally speaking, those who are not Christian dads and their sons, or rather their sons, tend to obey them more than those who are Christians. So this behavior amazed me a great deal, and I decided to write something about it. And that's how come that I wrote Sons and Dads, as you have seen it. Yeah.
And I find that your statement is in fact true. But without giving my 2 cents worth, I want to know, of course, what did you find out? What did your research uncover? Why do Christian sons and dads have this trait or this characteristics about their relationship?
Well, one of the reasons, or some of the reasons, why the Christian dads and their sons behave the way they do is because, one, the Christian dads tend to restrict their sons from having relationship with the people outside their Christian circles. So they tend to have very rigorous kind of discipline, authoritarian kind of discipline, whereby sons are not allowed to go out of the home, and they have to be or to have relationship with the people who are like their Christian dads. And for that reason, they start, when they look outside there, they see other dads and other sons who are not like them are doing things which they think they should do also. Like, for instance, there are traditional dances which are not bad, and the Christian sons or sons from the Christian dads are not allowed to participate in. There are some types of foods, like, which they may not eat because they are restricted by their Christian denomination. They are not allowed to speak. Their dads are authoritarian. In other words, what the dad says is what the son has to do. And sometimes these sons have many questions, but their dads have no time to answer them. In fact, they do not allow them to ask those questions. So these sons have to go out and find out for themselves. And in that process, they get themselves trapped in relationships which are very, very difficult and very, very bad. On the other hand, the other side of the, this is what I observed. It is a general observation, not a real research.
Yes.
On the other hand, on the other side, where the dads may not be Christian, they go to church, but they do not literally confess. Their sons are allowed to participate in discussions at home during meals. They all ask questions. They are answered, and they have very good relationships with their dads. And the consent, that is the behavior I observed, and I decided I should write something about. Yeah.
Now, have you found that just in your observation, and I'm curious if there's a particular age at which the boys become more frustrated than another? Like, are the sons okay, or the relationship that they have with their father seems to be okay until they become 10, 11, 12, or is it once they become 16, 17 that they find that dad just isn't quite the person that they'd hoped that he would be relationship-wise?
Yeah, generally, what I observed is that sons which are where they are teenagers, this is where the rebellion is very much concentrated. Although, that is on the whole. But I have also observed grown-ups. If I may give you an example, when I was in high school, I was a sophomore in high school, and that's when I was baptized as a Christian. the pastor who baptized me had a grown-up son who actually dropped him to come and baptize us in high school, and then he went in his wild to do his in the wild behavior, went into the bars drinking, and this was a grown-up with a family. So that is the kind of thing, actually that's the time that I started thinking, whoa, do Christians behave this way? And that was a grown-up. But generally, it is the teenagers, maybe between 12 up to let's say up to about 15, 16. That's where it is mainly concentrated, where the sons of Christian dads tend to rebel and completely go out of their way to do things which are completely anti-Christian. Yeah.
So it tends to be that usual age of puberty, but if the relationship has been a little bit different, so then my question to you becomes, what do you think is the responsibility of Christian dads, or how could the dynamic change at that time frame in order to make it better?
Well, when a son is born into a family, the only man he sees is his dad. And when the son is growing, he is actually looking at his dad as a model. And if the dad behaves well and has good relationship with his son, it is likely that son is going to grow and become like his dad, behaving well. After all, it is the dad with whom he is spending most of the time, although the mother is there, but the son will most of the time want to look at his dad to know what men do in terms of relationship, in terms of honesty, in terms of even humility, in terms of compassion, in terms of the relationship between one sex, the male sex and the female sex. So, and sometimes, there is this saying, I don't know whether, like son, like father, In other words, when the son grows, he is more or less likely to be like his father in the way he looks, which is genetics, and the way he behaves. So the father has a great responsibility as a model in the family to his son, because it is from him that the son is going to develop what he is going to do in life. And his outlook in life will very much depend on what he sees. Of course, if he sees bad things, those are the ones he will also copy from the dad. If he sees good things, those are the ones he will use. He will copy and do in his life. So dad is a model in the family, and the son looks up to him for guidance in every way.
You are really sharing such important information. I think that many times as parents, and especially first-time parents, that they forget that their children are watching them, that everything you do is being observed, it's being noted, and it's being understood to be copied in some way, shape, or form. Because how many listeners, and you know this, how many times have you heard someone say something and they go, well, I get it from my dad. My dad's the same way,
exactly.
and
Yep. You are very right.
And it's so funny, and it's like, so dads, this is not to put you down. This is definitely to learn, because we can always hit the reset button. We can always start learning from today what we can do, because who doesn't want to grow a little bit more? Well, listeners, we need to go and take a very short break, but don't worry. When we get back, we will continue to speak with Dr. Humphrey Muciiri. He is the author of Sons and Dads. We will be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. We are speaking with Dr. Humphrey Muciiri today. He is the author of Sons and Dads. We are talking about trials and tribulations faced by Christian sons and dads. And I think that regardless of your age, regardless of where you live in the States, regardless where you live on the continent of Africa, this is a dynamic that happens with sons and dads. So this is such a wonderful topic to talk about today. So Dr. Muciiri, in what ways would you suggest, or in what ways should Christian dads treat their sons that may be a little bit differently than how they treat their daughters?
Well, I believe that there are certain jobs that on the whole sons are capable of performing because of their physical strength. Mm-hmm. And the others, only daughters can perform because they need extreme care. For instance, lifting heavy things is the work of boys, really. Mm-hmm. And the things like cooking or even looking after young ones, these are very fine jobs. They need a lot of care. And those for the girls or the daughters are fitted to do them. But also, I believe that when God created us, human beings, He created male and female, and of course with different roles, but roles which are complementary. In other words, boys can perform some jobs like lifting heavy things, which girls or daughters may not be able to do, while daughters can do very, very nice jobs which need a lot of care. And because boys tend to be very clumsy in things like that. I agree with that.
I know exactly what you mean, because there are many times, and moms, I know you're shaking your head and you're saying, your daughters will take the extra eye or the extra attention to make sure that she is soft or gentle or kind or work slowly. And boys sometimes can be rough or work too quickly. Yes, yes. So I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Okay.
It is. Yes. Excuse me. I apologize. It is wonderful and quite refreshing to hear someone remind us that it's okay that we have those roles, especially in a lot of traditional homes. We still have those. We still have those roles. If we think about it, our husbands take out the trash. And they teach our boys to take out the trash. Like you said, the kind or the softer roles that we have when mom has a new baby, who's kind of expected to help? The daughters help. When we have Christmas dinners or holiday dinners, the girls are expected to help mom do the mom things. So I'm definitely following what you're saying on that. Now, do you think that that there are some things that Christian dads can do to become better role models, or even just a good role model to their sons?
Yes, definitely. As a Christian dad, I have to be a Christian in deed, not in words, because there is the tendency of saying that one is a Christian, but actually he is not walking the walk. And that is the beginning of everything. If the Christian dad, does exactly what he says, the son is going to learn. And then that is going to be very, very important in life. Because I can still remember what my father used to do. And I still, even now, we discuss it here with my wife. And she the same. So there are setting a good example is very, very important, so that the son learns how to do it. They can always remember, even if he goes astray during the time of, any time during life, he is likely to remember what he was taught. And that's why it says in Proverbs, teach the child the way he or she should go. In this case, we are talking about the boy, and even when he is old, he will not deviate from that example. He will do what is right. So that is I think the basis for the teaching of the son, teaching the son from the father or from the dad.
Do you still believe that? So let me kind of qualify the question here that I'm about to ask. I was raised in a very traditional, old-fashioned, old-school, Southern Christian home. I'm originally from Virginia. I have a practice in Virginia, a practice in California. And, here in the States, things can be so different according to where you live.
Right.
So my upbringing is, again, that very traditional way. Do you think that dads should do the things that they used to do in that time frame that we now consider to be old school? And that was when dad's working on the car, should he bring his son out and teach him how to change a tire and how to change the oil, or should he just teach him, hey son, make sure you purchase AAA or roadside assistance so that someone else can come? Or should he teach him both? What do you think about those old-fashioned ways of doing things?
Well, that is another problem which has been a big problem within the Christian circles. Well, as Christians, there is the tendency to hold on to the old without being able to reconcile it with what is coming new, with what is new. So it is very important for a dad to teach his son how to change the tire when they have you call it a flat. In Kenya we call it a puncture. It is important for the dad to teach the son how to do it, but at the same time show him that there are new things that are coming. If it's a new one, if they are well-to-do and they don't have time to be changing tires, they can buy new ones if they have the money. But if they don't, they have to nurse the ones what they have, the old one, by having it amended so that they can move on. So he should be able to teach both. And the problem has been, there are dads, like for instance in my book, one of the dad whose son became a rebel. It was because although he was a teacher, he hadn't lived up to know that there are new things coming, and therefore the son was interested in them, and the help for him to learn them and to get away, to teach them, to teach those things in his family, and the son just completely went wild. So the father or the dad should be able to teach both things, both the old and the new. Unless, and that otherwise, if he doesn't, it is going to be like what I have written in my book, Sons and Dads, the one who was the rebel. Because he will see new things happening and he wants to do them, that is the son, and the father is preventing him from doing them, and they are not bad, but he goes wild and does them, and then they become he becomes a rebel. So
that is such a good point.
The father
you have to be able to do both. That is such a great point, Dr. Muciiri. And I love how you say that, if you're not allowed to do some of the new things, then you will become rebellious. And wouldn't it be wonderful if the parent, or the dad in this case, would still kind of get his way and be able to guide that son. Which leads me to, you're making such a great point, and let me go on and ask this question of you. Why do you think, or what do you think makes the sons of the Christian dads want to join the non-Christian groups, the other side. What's going on in the son's thinking that he's like, just forget it. I love you, Dad, but I'm going over here.
Well, there are certain things. One, again, coming back to the Christian dad, because of being such an authoritarian person, he has not been able to connect with his rebellious son. So the son, he doesn't even know the potential of this son. He has not been able to observe it. But when the son goes out there with his peers and even with other parents of those other sons, they observe and see this guy is a good one. He can play soccer. He can even milk, like I have written there in the book. He can do very many things. But his dad, the Christian dad, he doesn't appreciate that, has not been able to find that. In other words, he has not been able to find what potential is in his son. That is one. The second one is peer pressure, of course. Peer pressure plays a big, big part in the sons getting out of their Christian atmosphere, to go out there. When he is at school or out there playing, the other sons from other parents are doing things which they don't do in their home, and he wants to do them, but he's not allowed by his parents. So he gets out to do them. Those are just two of them. Yeah.
And that is really good information. That I like how you said that he needs to observe him more, or be open and really see the son, see the child for who he is.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that answer.
And of course, the third one I should add there is not giving this son time to speak. In other words, the father just sees him and he doesn't allow him to even ask questions. So when he has problems, nobody helps him to know what to do. So he has to go and find answers for himself out there. And he has to find them among his peers. And they may not be the good answers. So for that reason, then he gets out. He is no longer in his family. He has to go out there where he is accepted. Yeah.
Man, that, Dr. Muciiri, I think that answer is really going to be an eye-opener for so many people. When people come to me in the therapy capacity, it tends to be communication. I'm not being heard. This person is not listening to me, and it really and truly has an effect. So if the dad is teaching the son that his voice doesn't mean anything, I can see how that son grows up, gets married, and then he doesn't know how to communicate with his wife. He in turn doesn't know how to communicate with his son. Man, you are hitting the nail on the head with that. Listeners, I know. You're nodding. They're nodding their heads.
You are very right. That is a very important point. So the son can only do what he knows.
Yes.
And if he doesn't know how to look after somebody, so he'll do what he has learned out there, and it may not be very good. And consequently, he doesn't become very responsible, for his family.
Right. Wow. It is. I think that is really hitting home for someone, and they need it to be reminded of that. They really do. Well, listeners, it is time for us to take a short break, but when we get back, we will continue this beautiful conversation that we are having with Dr. Humphrey Muciiri. He is the author of Sons and Dads. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. Today, my guest is author Dr. Humphrey Muciiri, and we are talking about his new book entitled Sons and Dads, Trials and Tribulations Faced by Christian Sons and Dads. And I think that this is really, really good conversation. I am learning from the male perspective. How do we deal with this? What do we do? And I believe that we should use every day to learn something, to be able to conversate with another person and understand their perspective. And even though I am a therapist, I love to learn. I don't want to ever come across as having the answers to everything, because there's always someone who can help you further explain or further understand a particular topic. And that's what we're doing today. So, Dr. Muciiri, we're talking about your book, Sons and Dads. But I want to ask you, where can someone pick up a copy of your book?
Amazon.com. That is one place where you can get it. The Barnes and Noble is also there. I can also mail to somebody. I have copies, many copies in here where I am, and through my my email. Somebody send me an email. I can address. I can send the book to them. Yeah,
so just all around, right? Those are the major ways. So, listeners, there's no reason for you not to be able to get it. You can get it from Amazon, you can get it from Barnes and Noble, and you can also do the more traditional way of just contacting the author and sending in payment, and then the book will be mailed to you.
That's right.
Awesome.
Yep.
I love that. Yep. Now, we are talking about Christian sons and Christian dads, but we're also looking at the perspective of, there's the secular side of the world, and that our children are going to interact with them. So, Dr. Muciiri, why do you think it's important that a Christian dad has an influence on his son when it comes to who his son's friends are?
Friends. Well, when you make a friend, if he is a good friend, you become more or less become like him. The behavior. There is a tendency to copy one another. So if the friend has good behavior, then the son will definitely get that good behavior from his friend. On the vice versa will also happen. If the other person has bad behavior, he will also absorb it, and they become part of his life. And it is this aspect. My mother, when I was growing up, both my father and my mother were telling me, don't be like that boy. This particular boy whose work was just, he had a dog, and he would chase gazelles, which from one area to the other, just get to them, to catch them for meat. But he had rebelled from his parents because he wasn't doing anything that his parents wanted him to do. And they would tell me, don't become like that son. And so that is another. That's why this became a very, very important for me, because my dad always told me, if you go with that lot of people, that lot of boys, you are going to be like them. Do you like their behavior? Obviously, I didn't. So he would direct me to another area. He didn't force me, but he would point, those are better. And part of the reason why I was able to go to school and go on. Yeah. Yeah.
It really and truly is important. I'm sure that my brothers, of course, will have a certain conversation about dad, but I know that the same was true for my dad, and such a cool person, such a easy person to talk to, and I loved how you said, like how your father was, is that he would give you the direction, he would tell you what was best, but he also gave you the option of doing it. And I think in doing that, we always wanted to take his advice because it was good advice. But we didn't feel the pressure or like a vice on us to have to do it, but that we chose to do it because it was always good advice.
Exactly.
That really and truly does make a difference. You are so right.
The other point is that if and when I misbehaved, he would not discipline me without me sitting me down and telling me exactly what the discipline was about. You did this, I would say yes or no, and then he would go on, and then all this would happen after we have had meals, not when I just come. It's when we have been there, we have discussed many things, and finally he would ask me, did you do this? Yes, I did. Why did you do it? Then I would tell him. And after that, he would tell me, this was not good behavior, and for that reason, there are consequences. And then I would get the discipline, and then I know why I'm getting it. Yeah.
That is such a wonderful thing, because I know there's someone saying, oh man, conversation, you get explained what happened, because we hear the stories about the kids that their parents didn't do that with them.
Right.
So many times they didn't even understand what they had done incorrectly. All they knew is that discipline was coming, and how do you correct it if you don't know what you did wrong in the first place?
You can't. You can't. Yeah, that's right.
I love that.
Yeah.
I like how you how even when you're explaining that it's nothing wrong with the discipline, because I know there are some people saying, well, I don't want to discipline my children, and there's nothing wrong with the discipline in explaining what we should and should not do. Do you agree with that?
Of course, we are told in the Bible, the book of Proverbs, if you spare the rod, you spoil the child. That is a statement which is true, because if you do not discipline this child or this son, when he grows up, he's going to be a rebel, and he'll do things which will definitely embarrass the whole family. So it is very important to tell the son why he is being disciplined and the reasons, so that when he gets the discipline, he knows it's not because he is hated. It is that behavior which is not wanted in him, because it is not going to be good, advantageous for him in life. This is very important. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Muciiri, what do you think about the opposite sex? When it comes to dads, should they encourage or kind of discourage their sons from having female friends? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I believe that Christian dads should not discourage their sons from having friends of the opposite sex. However, it is the duty of dads to teach their sons what are the effects if, for instance, they have premarital sex. There are diseases like HIV/AIDS, and that is a disease that will definitely eliminate him from life. I know there is medicine now, but in Africa, Africa has suffered a great deal because of HIV/AIDS, and it is still suffering. But we know it is a very devastating disease. And apart from that, there are other sexually transmitted diseases which are not good to have, not at all.
Right.
And also, we know that premature sex actually takes away from one's life when one is married. And plus the fact that if a son gets kids when he is a teen, before he has started working, well, by the way, I may sound old-fashioned, but I believe a son should be married when he is able to look after his family.
Yeah.
But if he gets kids when he is still at school and they have no means at home, then who is going to look after his wife and the kid?
Right.
That is going to be something very, very bad in society. And more importantly also, Christian values do not allow sex before marriage. This is said very well in the Bible. I know this sounds out, something very strange in the present circumstances, but I still believe it.
Right. And there's nothing wrong with letting your family member, be it that it's the son or the grandson or whomever, know, hey, this is what our faith dictates to us. But this is what you might be feeling, or this is what you might be tempted to do. Like you said, kind of blending, being aware of the old or the traditional, and being aware of the current circumstance, and giving that direction and having that conversation with your son. And I think that will really allow him to make the best choice that he possibly can. Well, Dr. Muciiri, we have about 3 minutes left in the show, and I have so many questions for you. But I want to ask you, when we're talking about the rebellious son, what do you think that the dad should do to deal with that rebellious son? And then on the flip side of that, what can a rebellious son do to try to reconcile with his father?
Well, even as a Christian dad, one should love the son who is rebellious, but be wise in the sense that you are not condoning his behavior. You would like to discourage the rebelliousness of his behavior, of him, and provide some conducive atmosphere whereby he can ask questions or complain about what is happening to him, and then listen carefully. And of course, during meals, particularly, is the best time to have a discussion like that. And in the final analysis, if he still insists of being rebellious, there's nothing else that one can do except to find a way of having his behavior corrected, which means sending him to a rehabilitation place, to a rehab. Just like I have mentioned in the book, that boy who misbehaved and rebelled against his Christian dad, he had to be taken not by his father, but by society, by the community, to a rehabilitation center. And finally, he ended up being a very good son. He got reconciled to his father, but he had already given his life to Jesus, to Christ, and for that reason, he was able to recognize that he was reconciled to God, whom he had run away, and he felt that he should be reconciled to his earthly father. And finally, he had to go and accept or ask for forgiveness to his dad. And fortunately, his dad had also come to know the Lord as his Savior, and he also accepted that he had actually rebelled against God, and that's why he was misbehaving against his son. And when both of them came together with this realization of reconciliation by Jesus to God the Father, then they themselves were able to be reconciled, and they came back again, and they hugged each other and embraced each other as human beings. Yep.
Dr. Muciiri, thank you so much. We are out of time for today, but thank you so much for spending time here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I appreciate your time with us.
Okay, thank you.
Listeners, thank you as well for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I hope that you have enjoyed our time that we have spent with Dr. Humphrey Muciiri and talking about his book, Sons and Dads. And as always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in everything that you do. Until next week, you guys, have a great day. Bye-bye.